maybe the calling that we have as humans, because work is work. It can become like Groundhog Day, anything. If you look at it, you break it down, it's this repetition, and there's different colorations of work, which is awesome. And but I was wondering, what's really the magic of work? And I think a lot of it has to do with the human interactions that occur, that are magical. It's the connections, the depth that happens in conversations or accomplishing a mission together, working through hardship and then celebrating. It's like a team thing, but there's these magical moments of connection. And I don't know if we pay attention to that as much. And so I saw that, we're going to build stuff, we're going to work, but what kind of are the sinews of it, the things that kind of tie it all together, are these conversations and connectedness to other humans. And so for my belief is if we can then know that and value that, then how do you do that? And I think it's by seeing one another, knowing each other, affirming one another and being generous to each other. And this seeing piece of it, I didn't really get, because I think it's more of a being present, a mindfulness type of thing where you're fully engaged with the individual, not trying to manipulate them into some type of goal that you have, but just kind of listening to them, seeing them, wishing the best for them, like trying to figure out what's their dream, who are they, how do I help them reach that dream, and I guess, from my background, from my spiritual background, my theology had always been future oriented, and my view of God and the way I live my life. And I think as a business person, also, I was always, if you're called a visionary leader, you value being future oriented.
Right.
So it's a double whammy.
Right.
I had my spiritual side very future, and then my business thing was being complimented for being future. But so I think what happened is I didn't know really how to be present and see a person. And so when I saw this was the magical part of work and the magical part of living is being fully present, mindful of one another, valuing one another, it made everything beautiful to me. It made everything more meaningful. And so, so I think, for me, that was interacting that way was, if they're cues for me to say, hey, this is maybe what I'm really after, is this type of interaction. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I'd be curious what you think about the whole digital leap we've made of like hybrid or totally, never coming in an office. It's all virtual. Cause I was telling you, I've been rereading this book, Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, I think is his last name. My brother gave me this book years ago, but and it really impacted me. But this was before the pandemic, and he talks about healthy culture being like a place of belonging. So there's this like psychological safety, like I feel valued here. There's vulnerability. That's a key part of it. And that starts with the leader, being vulnerable and creating that tone and even admitting when they screw up. And then this idea of establishing purpose, like having these projects that, are sustaining the group's energy. And it's not just about trying to be happy. It's like, man, we're working on something that we think is really important and valuable. But, one of the studies in here was like, it was looking back to these engineering groups from like the Cold War and saying, okay, why were some groups really successful and other groups weren't? And they literally found that the groups that were the most successful, the distinguisher was not their like IQ. It wasn't, they had special resources. It was how close their desks were to each other. Literally the proximity of their desks created this advantage. And I think there was some stat where it was like, they were like, I don't know how they measured this, but 30% more, functional or is successful. And so, here it is. They completed their projects 32% faster, than groups that were. And then they said, even when you moved a floor, like if you were on one floor and then you moved to floor, you might as well have moved to like another country, like just like literally that proximity change. So my question is, okay, we're in this digital world. Like, we're doing this interview right now on this. This is great. There's some great things about it, but like, how much do we need to be together? Like, how much is the in-person thing key? And I not that we can even go back, but like, how do we move forward with some of that? I've really been grappling with that. And I haven't heard a ton of people talking about it in a way that has satiated my.
For me, it naturally depends on the person. It comes down to that to me, because there's some people that seem to do better by themselves. And there's some people who they need other people to interact with in a physical form. But some people don't need that. I know some of my best mentors. I never saw them. I read their books. And it felt like I was mentored. They could have been sitting right next to me, talking to me. So when Henry Nouwen died, one of my favorite authors, I remember finding out about it in a coffee shop. I can remember the place someone told me, and I just started weeping because he had spoken to me without even being present. So I think if we look at our lives, we actually have many inputs that we're not necessarily physically there. But I also know that there are many moments where physical presence matters and that touch matters. So I think it's a hybrid. I think as humans, we probably need some type of both and. But it'd be hard to say that, hey, you can only do this one way and this is the only healthy way. I think it just depends a lot of times on your situation, your circumstance. Because some people may not be able to get out of the house if they're having sickness or some type of ailment, or they have to watch somebody too. And so to say, hey, you need this to be healthy only, well, maybe they don't have a choice, man. And so to me, I think it really depends on circumstance. We're really resilient people. Just you adapt to what you're able to, knowing that you probably need some type of physical contact and interaction, which could help you, but make do with what's working for you, but don't beat yourself up about it. But try to strive for what's really healthy, energizing for you to be productive and a healthy person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Coming back to that, what energizes you? Like if you are more introverted, how much do you need it to stay in the flow with people? If you're more extroverted, maybe it's how much, how can you force yourself to have some more time on your own? I know for a lot of people, they felt like they've gotten their life back. So, I think there's so many good things about it where they said, I remembered, like, I have a family, I can go outside, I can walk, like, because they were doing hybrid stuff and virtual stuff, they remembered that they're a person, and that they're a human, and all of this is key. And yeah, we need to work and we need to do a good job and create great things and have a contribution, but we also need to like live, like walk around, look at trees, So I think there's so many good things about it. And maybe I'm just projecting on, parts of that that I miss, But yeah, that's an interesting take on it,
Also, I'm thinking maybe it depends on who you interact with, because, there's a lot of things that could be done like we're doing now, like on a Zoom call. I don't need to physically drive to a place and be in a location. That takes a lot of money and time. But it depends on what's the goal of that human meeting, that physical meeting. So what I found is like the digital hybrid model gives me much more energy and space to focus on some of the relationships I'm going to go deeper with in a physical way. And so to me, again, I think it's a both and you kind of have to, monitor like what's healthy for you. Who do you need to spend time with, maybe physically, or be in the presence of? So there's some, of course, your family, your kids, close friends. Maybe you want to learn something from a mentor or somebody that doing something well. So you go travel there, spend a few days. But there's a lot of conversations. I remember just meeting people, had FOMO, man. I got to meet everybody, see them face to face. There was no discrimination in terms of, or discernment about like, who do I see and be with? But yeah, COVID, the pandemic, I think it's kind of like a reboot. It's like you said, like a reset to say, man, is that really valuable? Or do I need to kind of relook at how I schedule my time?
Right. Yeah. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Any changes you've made since the pandemic that you'll just never go back on? Any tweaks you've made of like, this is how I schedule my time and I'll never go back now that I found it?
Well, it's this. I do a lot more Zoom calls or phone calls.
Mm,
Like I used to not like to talk on the phone or get on, just digitally connect, but I found it just as valuable, man. It's like,
mm-hmm.
and it just saves us a ton of time.
Yep.
Because even with you right now, you're my buddy, we're friends, but man, we live across the country from each other. But this is good to me, man. I can connect with you.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're heart to heart, man. It's like I can feel you, even though I'm not physically there with you. I see you, man. And
Yeah.
that to me, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And so, so I think I've changed in terms of valuing more the digital element of it. And then when I am physically there, to say, okay, if I'm physically going to put my resources of traveling somewhere, eating together, it needs to be something that I really know this is a priority. Otherwise, I probably am not going to do that because there's so many local responsibilities.
Right. Yeah, I've been shocked. Like, one of the core processes I know that you have that I learned from you and that I've started to implement is these flows, like really diving into someone's essence and helping them form an activation plan. And I've been shocked by doing those in person, which does take more time because it's you're driving and there's the chit chat before and after, versus doing it on a Zoom. I'm like, it's still like almost the same level of efficacy. Like, the effectiveness is there. Yeah. Sometimes it's even more focused because it's like you can't really look at your phone or do something else because the person's like, where'd you go? It almost takes more intensity sometimes to like really focus in on the screen. So that is something that has been cool too, to notice like there's really not that much of a drop off, So to kind of push things on the other way, and maybe this is where we kind of start to land it here, but I do feel like something else I've learned from you that I saw in this book, and I can't find where it was, but they basically said healthy teams, they have this sense of belonging. They have this kind of open, honest conversation and all, hold each other accountable, but then they also will release each other to go.
Well, from studies that I've looked at, to immerse yourself in cultures and with people and experiences different or not normal to you, heightens and sparks your creativity. And so when you feel like you're getting stuck, just even locally, go to a restaurant that you've never gone to before with food you've never eaten in terms from a cultural perspective, and just eat it. And then absorb the atmosphere. You'll just start absorbing, seeing things from a different way, because food is culture. A lot of the way they put spices together, the way they make things, what happens in the environment of the eating and the preparation and the afterglow. It's stuff that I think enlivens you and takes you out of your rut. And what's fascinating about this is I think we're used to relying upon these default neural pathways of how we live our lives. We see something, we just react. And to me, that's how we're doing our lives. We just know I got to go to work and I'm going to do this. And we just start going down the same highways. But they say literally you can start developing these new neural pathways in your brain with 25 seconds of concentrated meditation. And they said it doesn't matter how old you are. So you can create new pathways in your brain, spark creativity, think of things differently by a different meditation. And so to me, that just, you have to think the magic of your mind, it's the beauty of your mind. It's almost like this infinite space there that, can be worked with. We haven't even tapped it. It's so brilliant. And so to me, that's why it's important as humans, not to just get relegated into these silos, into the same homogeneous groups, where that's where you're just thinking and breathing that way, because you're missing a world that can actually help you in your local world. And so to me, again, I don't think it's just about metaverse. It's about local, it's a microverse. And I think that's a shift that's going on from meta to micro, from this global to local. So there, there's these reactions and pendulum swings that will keep going back and forth. But I think at the heart of it all, we need both. You need local and global You need meta and you need micro. It just helps the interaction of that allows you to be a creative person.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, maybe the reason it feels important to me is because I felt it almost feels selfish sometimes when you're like, hey, I need to go to this place. People are like, why? What are you going to find there? You're like, I don't know. I just think, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go on all these different trips and like be in radically different cultures and spaces.
Yeah.
So that when you were talking about those things, I was like, oh yeah, I've experienced that. But then you get stuck in, like what you said, these ruts where it's like, this is who I see. This is what I do. This is where I go. And you don't know what's going to happen because your mind literally hadn't been there yet. You literally don't know. And so I think, I struggle with it too. Like, why do you have to go to these places? Or it must be nice for you. Like, and you feel guilty, you feel selfish, but I'm like, man, I don't know if I can survive without it now, and I don't know what that's like for you, but it seems like you're constantly kind of pushing the boundaries and exploring new places and people.
Yeah, well, that's why I say it's like a learning adventure, and that's what I call them. Is I say I'm a curious. Like to me, I don't feel guilty about that. I say I'm a constantly curious person, and I'm a learner, and I know you are. And so to me, there's so much to learn from other people, and that's why I think a lot of people who are just staying in the same place, focus on the same thing. It's cool that they're persevering, but if they kind of want to grow as a human being, I think you need to kind of explore, cultures that are different than you. If you can't afford going to another country, again, usually within the local city of yours, there's all these subcultures that you can check out. One I've recently been checking out was it's a subculture. It's people who struggle with addictions, and so I've been going to these recovery meetings, and it's like I found a community of people. I really love these people. And a lot of them are ex-cons or felons, or they have drug challenges, addictions, but they're so vulnerable. And so I found such meaning just hanging out with them, man. And
you just asked them if you could come to their group, or
well, they've been starting to like interact in some of the community meetings that I hold as they've been learning, and I noticed that they're more and more were coming to some of these community gatherings. And so I said, where are you guys from and stuff? And they go, we're from this one recovery house. And then there multiple recovery houses started to come to some of my leadership and some of my inspirational talk type stuff. And then I said, well, I want to go. So I went to one of the recovery meetings, and they had like 100 people in this big room. And then they were just one-on-one. They're sharing about their challenges. And then I go, whoa. I
love that challenge of like, you can do this locally, hyper local. There's expressions. I think, and again, if people listening to this, like, what's an idea that comes to your mind? Just go do it. Just go do it. Just jump in there. Like, I'm afraid. I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, that's the point, and you won't know what you learn or the insight you get until you actually do it. But then how enlivening that is, how stimulating that is, and being able to empathize with different people, just experiencing different things. I love that. And I feel like that's just so core. Again, I think it's counterintuitive, but like if we give people the freedom to do those things, what riches, what resources are they going to bring back to the group? Not that that's even why you would do that. But there is things I think that will come out of that, that just seem important. So just thinking about things in a different way, and you talk about this too, just being a Martian, just be a Martian, have the beginner's mind, start all over again. Have the Jesuit mindset. What was that? Where it's like one leg's lifted. Can we end on that? Cause I know you got to go in a second.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, one leg, I forget how. Like
one leg lifted or something. Yeah.
One leg raised. Totally, like I had the phrase and I lost it when you use this other phrase. But so yes, it's this idea of one leg raised, where the Jesuits have 1 foot raised up, so that when God tells them what to do, they're just ready to go. I feel like that's kind of how I am. I'm ready to go, but I think again, it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Right.
It's like wherever you are, be there fully.
Right.
But then also don't forget the fact that it's super healthy for you to meet and learn new cultures and hang out with new people. They'll make you better, and then you probably will help encourage them as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, how can people connect with you, Dave? If they want to know more about you and your work, where can people go?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's called One Foot Raised.
Okay.
It just came to me. I would say have them go to like Instagram at Dave K Gibbons, Gibbons, B as in boy, or Twitter Dave Gibbons at Dave Gibbons, or Facebook at Dave Gibbons. And then my website's davegibbons.org.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully this is the first of many more Stoke conversations to come, just giving people some encouragement, some inspiration for how to just ignite that inner fire in them and in other people. So Dave, you've been such a stoker in my life. I like what you're learning. I like the way that you're thinking about things. And it's definitely been a liberating force in my life to keep pushing, to keep growing. So thanks so much for spending some time today.
It's mutual, man. Proud of you. Keep it rolling, bro.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, Dave.